Hey everyone, we've talked about it. TDR here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. for a big week with lobbyist Don Murphy. You all want to know what's the latest going on with regards to safe banking. Could we get rescheduling happen anytime between now and let's say the summer recess? We're going to basically walk you through inside Capitol Hill as to what Don Murphy does every single day and some of the feedback that we're getting from different senators, different congressmen, different congresswomen on the chances of both a rescheduling and a safe banking happening at some point this year. Will it happen? Let's find out as we bring you live here in Washington, D.C. Senator Vance, the reason why was safe banking as just a bill that, there's as many as 500,000 jobs. This is a state of Ohio. Its adult use is about to go live in the next couple of months. But for a lot of, business owners, investors across the country and in your state, Ohio, this is something they want to see passed that would be great for the economy. So is there a reason why you voted against SAFE?
Well, look, there are a number of concerns that we had with the legislation. One in particular raised by a number of my colleagues, even Democratic and Republican colleagues both, is that the bill was crafted in such a way that actually would have opened up access to banking resources for fentanyl traffickers and others. You have to do this in the right way. You obviously want people to access financial services, but if you do it in the wrong way, you can actually promote illicit activity, and that's what I want to prevent.
So do you think if it's restructured in due time, you could change your stance and the view on this?
Well, let's see what it actually looks like, right? It's always weird to commit to a hypothetical, but certainly if the legislation is better, I would be more likely to support it.
Yeah.
I'd say with confidence I would get there.
Rescheduling, does that change and build momentum for the industry?
Rescheduling, sorry, say that again.
So right now, cannabis is still scheduled as a Schedule 1 drug, which is on par with heroin, while fentanyl right now is a Schedule 2. But the HHS recommended the DEA that rescheduling should take place. An announcement is imminent. So in the event that we do see rescheduling happen between now and, let's say, the summer recess, does that build momentum amongst people like yourselves and look at this differently?
Look, that's never been my particular focus and my particular cause of concern. I don't know. You'd have to ask other colleagues if that changes the momentum posture. There's also, of course, the question of whether this thing gets through the House. My sense is that it's not a priority in the House, but you'd have to ask those guys.
Well, due time. Hopefully things change. Appreciate your time. All right, here in Washington, Senator Steve Daines, big component, obviously an advocate for this industry, the cannabis industry, safe banking. There's been a lot of stalls, I think. It's out of your control, but how strongly do you feel that we're finally making progress here in 2024 pertaining to the bill itself? And do you think it will pass between now and the election?
I think we're at the best spot we've ever been on getting safe banking across the finish line. I'm cautiously optimistic. I've given up trying to forecast this town in terms of outcomes.
Timeline, you got to love that stuff, right?
When you have elections coming up, there tends to be more heat than light generated between now and November. But we're going to look at vehicles we could get the safe banking bill attached to. We've got some ideas on that, working with our House. The good news is I think we've got the House bill and the Senate bill now pretty well congruent. That's an important step now to go forward. So making progress. I'm cautiously optimistic we get this done in 24.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Do you think that more people here in Washington, I know the big thing for a number of years has been people are just uninformed, but is there more conversation and top-of-mind awareness that's taking place?
I think so. I mean, look, there's a public safety component. That's why it's called safe banking.
Right.
Because you've got these cash businesses here that are targets, certainly, of crime and violent crime. And this is about public safety. That's why we've got the support of so many law enforcement agencies around the country to do the right thing, not to mention for tax revenues, to be able to bank a business that's legal in so many states.
Well, let's hope. Yeah, appreciate your time. I know you're getting off. But listen, big component for the industry and big advocate. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yep.
You being a big supporter of safe banking and the whole cannabis industry, drug reform, you've talked about this a lot, yet it continues to stall here in Washington. If you had to give a kind of a response to people that follow this industry, do you believe that this is a bill that could pass between now and the election?
It's a bill that probably has 60%, 70% support in both the House and the Senate. It is supported more by Democrats than Republicans, but I'm a Republican. There are Republicans and Democrats both on this. But because of the political nature of more Democrats supporting this than the Republicans, it's less likely to come up in the House. It has come up in the House when the Democrats were in charge, but was never brought up in the Senate. So really there's a technical, sort of logistical, strategic reason why this isn't going anywhere right now, and that's because Chuck Schumer failed to bring it up when the House had brought it up. Had it been brought up, and had he not delayed it, I mean, he delayed it saying, oh, we're going to legalize and get rid of the, the schedule status of marijuana. Well, that didn't have enough votes to go forward, and it's fine to have the vote, but he should have just brought that vote up. If it didn't pass, then he should have moved to the Safe Banking Act. But it just languished, and now Schumer still has the ability to bring it up, and still hadn't come forward, but he has the ability to do it. So that could, and I think it would probably pass. I think there's enough Republicans with Democrats to get to 60 votes. But in the House, it's unlikely. I mean, look, they're having trouble bringing up spending bills. The speakership is dependent on not bringing up things that the majority of Republicans don't want.
Right.
And I haven't seen the voting on the Safe Banking Act, but I would guess it's a minority of Republicans, still a significant minority who are for it, and it's a big majority of Democrats. And so I think if I were in the speaker's shoes, I would say, wow, do I need another headache when I have all the other headaches of Ukraine funding, and I got these spending bills that I'm passing with majority Democrats, not Republicans. So I think that's where we are right now, and I'm still supportive of it and continue to try, and I've worked with Schumer on it. I think the logistics of it are difficult right now.
I want to ask you a quick question. At what point do you deem cannabis as a medicine, knowing the HHS has recommended?
You got older. Call being brief, so we're not going to be able to do anything right now.
I think our football players are trying to meet with him, with the chief.
Yes, but we're not able to communicate right now just because he's being brief. Like
Owners within this country.
It's really not an issue I've been terribly involved in, but I am supportive.
You're a big component for it, yes? Appreciate the support, sir. So that was interesting.
It's always interesting.
Good way to start the day is, I guess you want to talk to people
You could
from
go
Montana,
home now.
right?
This is, people get on planes to fly to D.C. to talk to people, honestly, of lesser stature than a senator.
Yeah.
No disrespect to staff, none at all. But we have an issue that is controversial. And staffers don't want to necessarily take a controversial issue to the boss. So that's why I talk directly to members, and that's why it's important for you guys to be here to talk directly to members.
I gotta admit, the people from Montana, very receptive, open. Like you said, I know the lead communications was like, we got to run, but then Senator Daines is like, no, we got time for a couple quick questions.
That's
that was great.
Always their job. Their job is to keep. Look, it's one of the reasons I don't often go into offices and talk to staffers, because their job is to keep me away from the boss. Same thing with you, because they're afraid of the gotcha question. They don't need that. That's unnecessary for them. And we have a bunch of folks here who are good on safe banking, good enough on cannabis. They don't necessarily want to sign on as a co-sponsor, because let's be honest, if a bill never makes it to the floor and never gets a vote, then they're not on record about it. And it's easier to be sort of unknown than known in a bad way. And it's gotten them this far, and they're going to continue to sort of do things that way.
I think the best approach when I'm learning just being here is it's fact finding. Don't have those gotcha type questions. And it's funny when you just ask questions that you want to learn. A lot of the times politicians end up showing their true colors based off of that response of what I'm seeing, right?
Well, you found that there are a fair number of folks who do not know what we're talking about. They don't know what Schedule 3 is. They don't know the details of safe banking. And I understand that. There are thousands of bills that are filed. And until one comes to the floor or comes to a committee of jurisdiction where you sit, you don't have time to be, I'll also suggest that the industry needs to do a better job of preparing members for these talking points, for understanding. You can't get somebody's vote until you get their attention. That's what being here is all about for me and for you as well. So.
What are the thoughts on safe banking right now? Like, is there more topic of conversation that's being done in urgency for this to pass, knowing that there's some medical benefits to cannabis, there's rescheduling possibly happening, there's as many as 500,000 people with jobs. Like, this is $100 million or $1 billion industry within the next couple of years.
Sure. Well, that's why I'm a supporter and one of the sponsors of the Safe Banking Act. And that's why there's more cash that can't be actually banked, which makes no sense in terms of businesses, no sense in terms of security, transparency, and all of the benefits that can flow from the industry. So if states have allowed recreational or other forms of cannabis to be used in their state, they should be banked. And it is my hope that as much as I support some of the justice efforts that some of my colleagues want to see happen. I don't think we should hold up the safe banking provisions to get the cannabis industry banked, and also my provisions on insurance. You have a cannabis business that's open, it can't get insured. That's a huge problem.
Yeah. Is there, like, for those that are against cannabis, are they being backed by somebody? Is that their point of view? Are they open-minded to, like, look at this at a different stance? Like, what is it?
Yeah, well, you have to ask them. But look, I think some people have ideological problems with the issue. I also think some people want to see justice for those who were criminally accused of minor usage and want to see justice for them. And they see this bill as the vehicle to achieve that. And while I support their efforts in terms of what they want to accomplish, I don't think we should continue to allow the cannabis industry and millions of dollars to go in bank.
Yeah. Appreciate your time. All right, next stop here we have in Washington, D.C., Corey Gardner. You were on with us last fall in Chicago, the Zenith Conference.
Right.
Good to see you. How are things?
Good to see you. Doing well. Looking forward to Florida.
Yeah. No, are you going to be down there next week?
I'll be down there next week. You got it.
Nice. So, again, the conversations I keep having with a lot of senators, congressmen, and congresswomen is the ongoing conversation with safe banking.
Right.
What does it have to take for this to pass? We get a lot of mixed, comments. Feedback, including one senator yesterday that said the wording in safe banking they are voted against because they felt it was a gateway for addiction with fentanyl. And I don't think a lot of people are really informed at the current state of the industry. But what can you provide as far as dialogue, since we saw you last in this narrative pushing forward?
So I think, look, if you were to put safer banking on the floor as a standalone bill, it would pass with overwhelming majority in both the House and the Senate. It's already passed the House many times, and this would give it a chance to for the American people to see that, hey, this does actually have support. And of course, that would exactly what we need to put it on the president's desk. But it's there's a saying in Congress that legislative time is the coin of the realm. They have a lot of other issues they're trying to deal with. You got FAA authorization, you got a farm bill that looks like it's going to get punted, you got funding bills and budget bills, you've got national security legislation they're trying to work on. And so they have to figure out how much time they have to dedicate. Because if somebody wants to object, one senator out of 100 people wants to object to a bill, it could draw the process out for weeks. And so the leaders are looking at saying, well, we don't have time if that happens. So that means it has to be coupled with other things. So I think what you see now is the negotiating process to try to figure out what can we put this in, where can it go.
You think that happens
so we can
before?
Get the House and Senate? I think there's two options. I think you're looking at legislation coming up on the FAA reauthorization.
Absolutely.
Or after the election as you go into a lame duck session. I think those are the two possibilities that you could see that legislation move. I don't see much happening outside of those two. But right now, that's kind of where the ballgame is.
Do you think the sentiment changes here in Washington in the event that the DEA rules that it should be rescheduled to a Schedule 3?
I think that all of that helps, right? I think all of that adds to why aren't we doing this? This, in fact, puts more urgency on it because it's a bigger problem if you don't start solving some of these things. So, I do think that matters and would encourage a solution.
Getting some taste of the Florida weather here in Washington.
Yeah, a little humidity, a little sun. It's nice.
We'll see you next week at the Menendez Conference.
Here, but it'll be good.
We'll do this again next week with a few more palm trees.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Corey.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Good to see you
it.
again. Take it.
Next stop here in Washington, aid sponsor of Safe Banking, Dave Joyce. Good to see you.
Nice to be seen.
Exactly, right? A lot of conversations we've had. It's about safe. It's about this whole dialogue of cannabis. And I like to get takes from like different, congressmen, congresswomen, and senators that basically want to push the narrative forward for this. But you've been the major sponsor for this. How much momentum, how much dialogue are we getting here in Washington? Are we seeing more and more people become aware of what this whole initiative is about?
Well, obviously, we were on the runway last year in the Senate, but we never quite took off. And so the plane is still over there waiting to take off. And I think once we get it done, whatever the Senate can approve, it's passed 7 times in the House. So it's just a matter of getting it back here. And unless there's some major redo of it, which I don't foresee, I think we should be ripe to take care of it here in the House and make it the law.
If someone were to ask you, and I've asked this a lot here today, but I'll continue to ask it, what do you think it takes to get it passed? It's a tough question to answer, I get.
Yeah, because everybody comes to it with a different twist, if you will, and trying to make it work. But we've been consistent in that. Now that more and more states have come online, with whether it's medicinal or full legal, it's an important thing to get this done now. And so I think getting business folks to also let the their representatives and senators know that it's important to them. It's just mind-boggling to me that this industry that is each state has allowed, that is financed, cannot get the financing it needs at the local bank or credit union level, and that it's not part of the banking system.
I know.
To me, it's a double check on the legitimacy of the business. People can say, well, this is only going to help cartels. There's no truth to that at all. If you have a system in which everything's measured from seed to sale, you know how much they're growing, you know how much they're selling, you know how much they should be making, and if there's any change in any of those things as it's going into the banking system, you got a reason to audit.
Do you share with colleagues here in Washington, 24 states legalized adult use, 38 states medicinal, 500,000 jobs right now within this industry. If we see rescheduling, rumor has another 100 to 200,000 jobs could be installed into the U.S. economy right away. Is that some of the conversation that you have?
Well, years ago when I saw the tax that Colorado took in once they went legal, what governor is going to walk away from a fount of money like that?
Right.
Not only that, it's a double punch in that you get the tax revenue, but you also are taking down the black market and the illicit crime that goes along with the black market. So that's why it makes more sense, I would think, to try to embrace the system since it's now considered a legal corporation in every state in which it's doing business.
Last thing I'll leave you with, and I've asked this again, rescheduling. With the DEA, the HHS recommended the DEA back in September, cannabis as Schedule I drug, which is still unheard of for people that follow this industry. But do you believe the DEA will reschedule this? And if so, happen between, let's say, now and the election?
Well, I'd hate to think that this administration would do anything to help their chances with the youth or the people of this country in an election year. I know that that's just not right. But no, I think that we've heard that conversation before. It doesn't deserve to be on the same level. We never thought it should be on the same level. I'm sort of agnostic. Whether it gets rescheduled or descheduled, that doesn't really bother me. I want to make sure we get safe banking in place to make sure that money is where it should be, inside the financial systems, instead of out there on the street.
Well, appreciate the support. Keep in touch, and honestly, I'll let you run. But again, thanks for taking the time. But most importantly, just pushing the narrative forward for cannabis. Appreciate it.
Great work.
Thanks. Appreciate it.